Hi everyone, my name is Emma, and I'm here to talk to you about the upcoming transits for the week of July 14th through the 20th. So, our big theme this week is Mercury retrograde, everyone's favorite astrological transit to blame all of their problems on. And if you don't know anything about astrology, you've probably heard of Mercury retrograde. So, we're going to talk about it because Mercury goes retrograde about 3 or 4 times a year for a few weeks at a time. And if you include the pre and post shadow phases, this adds up to about half the year. So it's pretty important to kind of understand what we're dealing with when Mercury goes retrograde. And we are already in the pre-shadow phase. I'm going to explain what that is, but let's talk about what Mercury retrograde is doing. So when a planet goes retrograde, it appears to be moving backwards through the sky. So if you track the movement of the planets, normally it looks like it's going that way. During the retrograde, it's going that way. The reason for this is because it is slowing down. So it appears to us to be moving backwards. It's not actually moving backwards, but the themes have to do with going back to the past, reviewing things, redoing things, That's why astrologers tend to advise that you don't start anything new during Mercury retrograde, because you might have to just go back and redo it, or you might have to go back and fix something. This is pretty common. And typical Mercury retrograde issues tend to revolve around things like miscommunication and understandings. Mercury deals with communication. It also deals with technology. You might see technology issues. You might see transportation issues. You might get stuck in a traffic jam, things like that. This is pretty typical for Mercury retrograde, but this one in particular is going to be moving through Leo, 4 to 15 degrees of Leo. So if you have any personal planets in between those degrees, this means Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or maybe your ascendant or midheaven. If they are around those degrees, you might be feeling this a little bit more. And what happens when Mercury is doing this little dance over this area of the sky, right? It goes over these degrees 3 times, which is why we end up having to repeat things. And during the pre-shadow phase, which we're in right now, you tend to get kind of a preview of what's going to happen during the retrograde itself. So pay attention to what's going on right now. You might see these themes coming up again in the next few weeks. Okay, and I want to speak about Mercury in Leo just in general, because Mercury in Leo is honestly, it's very loud, okay? It's very outspoken. I feel like the theme is speaking up, speaking out. The advice, the motto that I want to give for this particular transit is, may your head and heart speak with one voice. And now I did steal this off of a little tea bag that had an inspirational phrase on it, and I was like, oh my god, that's perfect for Mercury retrograde in Leo. May your head and heart speak with one voice, because truly Leo is all about being yourself, recognizing the beauty in being an individual and being your unique self and what you have to offer to the world, right? What your words have to offer to the world. You have power with what you say. And so I do want you to be aware that, yes, it is important to speak up, to stand up for yourself, but you may face consequences for that, okay? That is kind of how free speech works. You can say what you want, but there might be some consequences. But you want to just carefully choose your words. You want to take some time to slow down, right? That's what Mercury is doing. Take some time, slow down, rethink things, and think about if what you are saying to people, what you are putting out into the world, if it is really, if you're being authentic and true to yourself, and if it's worth saying what you want to say. So Anyway, that is my advice. I do also want to say there's going to be a danger of maybe speaking out of turn because you're being a little bit selfish. You're only thinking about yourself. Leo can be a little bit selfish sometimes. So just be aware of that as well. But Mercury will station direct on August 11th when it will be opposing Pluto. So we're actually starting out the beginning of this retrograde. Mercury is going to be sextile Venus. The end might be a little bit more dramatic than this Mercury retrograde station, which happens on either Thursday night or Friday, depending on where you are. So, yeah, it should be interesting once it stations and it's opposing Pluto. I do feel like hidden things will be revealed because individual people decided they want to speak out, because your voice has power. That's what I'm hearing with this Mercury retrograde transit. So anyway, that's Mercury retrograde. I'll talk about it a little bit more once we get to that part of the week, but let's start off with what's going on July 14th on Monday. So we are starting off the week with the moon in Pisces. The moon is going to be trining Jupiter in Cancer at 7 degrees at 9:45 a.m. And I am located in New Jersey, so I am using Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, so you can adjust that to wherever you are if you need to. But we're kind of starting off the day with a nice energy, right? Moon in Pisces, trine Jupiter in Cancer. They have mutual reception, which means that the moon is in Jupiter's territory and Jupiter is in the moon's territory. And so they're getting along. They have this harmonious flow of energy and you're feeling good. You're like, maybe you start off the morning, you go get yourself a nice coffee and it's great weather, the birds are chirping and you're feeling great. However, there are other things going on, and I want to take this opportunity to explain kind of how aspects work, especially lunar aspects, because when the moon, since we're looking at the moon right now, when the moon is applying to a planet, which means its next aspect is what it is applying to. So the moon is applying to this trine with Jupiter. That means that that's kind of the main energy going on with that planet. And then it moves on to, in our case, a square with Venus and Gemini, which happens later in the day. So that square with Venus is still kind of happening in the background. It's not to say that you will only feel that square to Venus when it happens at 3:52 p.m., but it might be kind of overlapping a little bit, right? So maybe you're having a nice morning, you're getting your coffee, whatever, and meanwhile your partner is at home and they're getting a little ticked off at you. And so you come home and you get back in the afternoon and your partner is like, hey, I really wanted to have breakfast with you this morning. I feel like we never talk anymore, and that was supposed to be our time to have a conversation with each other, right? Venus in Gemini loves talking and having conversations, and so while you were having this great morning, you didn't realize that there was this tension going on between Moon and Venus, right? Venus tends to deal with relationships and things like that. So yeah, sometimes these aspects overlap. So it might be a nice morning, but it turns into a little bit of tension in the afternoon. And we do also have the moon opposing Mars in Virgo. This is happening at 12:15 a.m. It might still be Monday night, depending on where you are, but moon opposite Mars is a little bit tricky too, a little bit tense. You might feel with an opposition, it's kind of like you're being pulled in two directions, or there's something coming at you, right? Mars in Virgo can be very critical. Pisces moon might be all up in your feelings. It's like maybe you're feeling bad because of this conversation you had with your partner, right? We actually have a T-square between the moon, Venus, and Mars, which means that they're all kind of interacting with each other. So maybe you're a little upset and you just want to go listen to some sad music, Pisces moon. But that Mars in Virgo is like come on, get your shit together. Go clean the house, go clean yourself up, go make yourself better. Like, stop feeling sorry for yourself. And it's like this tension between, oh, what should I do? Should I do I want to lean into that Pisces moon, or do I want to lean into that Mars and Virgo energy? So yeah, there might be some tension, okay, on Monday night and going into Tuesday. So I just wanted to mention that. We will also have later on in the day on Tuesday at 1:09 p.m., I guess not later in the day, but in the afternoon, the moon will be trining the sun, so that tension might lift a little bit later in the day. Moon trine sun is a pretty nice aspect. There's an easy flow of energy between your feelings and what you are doing. You should feel more comfortable and confident. And it might be a good time to resolve any issues that came up earlier in the day or the previous night. If we get into Wednesday, July 16th, the moon enters Aries at 12:32 a.m. Aries moons, I personally love Aries moons. Not everybody does, but Aries moon is very feisty. It can be very, very impulsive, so that is a danger. You want to watch out for doing anything impulsive just because you are feeling a certain type of way. But it's also very expressive and not afraid of conflict, right? That is one thing we can say about Aries. They're not afraid of a fight, which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes you need to get everything out in the open, and Aries moon is really great for that. It does aspect some of the outer planets, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. They are all in the early degrees right now, so this is happening, at least for me, it's going to be overnight. I'm going to be asleep, so maybe you'll be asleep too. I don't know. But once Aries, oh my gosh, guys, I want to apologize as well because of the Mercury retrograde. I feel like I'm totally stumbling over my words, but I don't want to have to attempt to record this again. So please forgive me. But anyway, when the moon is in Aries, once it moves past those other planets, it is going to be moving into a square with Jupiter at 3:02 p.m. And moon square Jupiter actually is not horrible, even though squares are usually, can bring up tension and conflict. Jupiter is still a benefic planet. It brings things like growth and opportunity. With the square, have to, usually, you got to do something to make Jupiter bring those blessings upon you. You got to take some sort of action. If you feel called to do something, just do it. Just do it. That's what Aries moon tells us. But do be careful about being too careless. But take advantage of that square with Jupiter on Wednesday. And then if we move into Thursday, July 17th at 12:43 a.m., the moon is going to be in a sextile with Venus, so this is a nice energy. It's also, after that, going to be moving into a trine with Mercury at 3:20. So this could be some nice conversations that you're having. You might be asleep. I'll probably be asleep, so that could indicate getting some interesting messages in your dreams, hopefully having pleasant dreams. I don't know, watch out for that. That's just the vibe that I'm getting. And later on in the day at 8:37 p.m., we have the third quarter moon. So this happens when the moon squares the sun. It's the third quarter because we had a full moon a little while ago. We are now moving towards the new moon, so the moon is waning, and we are preparing to end this particular lunar cycle. So when the moon is in this particular phase, you want to try to prepare yourself for the new cycle, for a new beginning. You want to think about what needs to be released and let go. not necessarily fun, because again, we're still dealing with a square. This is Sun square Moon, and there is a bit of a potential for emotional outbursts, especially with Moon in Aries and the Sun in Cancer. I feel like I could see people, oh yeah, just getting really emotional, and watch out for that. Okay, watch out for that today, this evening. But you want to think about what needs to be expressed, right? Mercury is just about to station retrograde, so you want to be careful with what you say. But if you're feeling this like pent up energy that you need to get out, I would really recommend doing something active. Especially with the Moon in Aries, it's a good time to get active. Move your body, okay? Instead of taking it out on somebody else or arguing, go do something active. Go work out, go dance, go do some yoga. That's what I like to do. Just get your body moving, get the blood flowing, and release that energy in a healthy way. That is my recommendation, okay? And we're going to move on to Friday, July 18th. At 12:44 a.m., Mercury stations retrograde. So I kind of already talked about the Mercury retrograde, but do be aware that in the day that it stations retrograde, and plus or minus a couple days on either end, is when you tend to feel that energy the most. So really, you just want to be aware that these retrograde stations tend to be very loud. However, this station is helped a little bit by Venus, because at 9:36 a.m. Mercury is going to be in a sextile with Venus in Gemini, and Gemini is Mercury's sign, so they have reception with each other, they're getting along, and this could kind of help, I think, with communication. Maybe you might have a misunderstanding, but then you're able to clear it up, and at the end of the day, everyone is still getting along, right? Venus is helping everybody get along with each other, so it could be worse, but you still want to be aware of all those Mercury retrograde themes. And we do also have the Moon moving into Taurus. That happens at 3:58 a.m., and the Moon likes being in Taurus, okay? This is the sign of the Moon's exaltation. It loves being in Taurus. It's very comfortable there. So yeah, it's not the worst day, right? When the Moon's in Taurus, I'm a Taurus sun personally, you just want to enjoy the finer things in life, just feel good, eat some good food, relax if you can. And yeah, we also have a sextile. The Moon sextiles Jupiter at 6:57 p.m. So, it could be worse. You could have worse transits on the day that Mercury stations retrograde. All in all, it's not that bad. But, just take the time to slow down, think about what you're saying, etc. If we move into Saturday, July 19th, the Moon squares Mercury at 6:07 a.m. This could lead to some emotional, personal conversations. There might be some tension between what you were thinking and what you are feeling. So I do want to advise you that with the Moon in Taurus and Mercury in Leo, Taurus and Leo are both fixed signs. So the fixed signs tend to be kind of stubborn, which can make the squares between them very difficult, because it's like, oh, I feel a certain way, but logically I'm thinking something else, and you might have some internal conflict, or you could get into some arguments with people, so be aware of that. However, at 11:36 a.m., the Moon trines Mars, so this is a little bit helpful. Mars is in Virgo as well, so Virgo and Gemini are both the signs of Mercury. So this is just kind of, helping to help Mercury be a little bit louder, even louder than it already is in Leo. And Moon trine Mars should give you more energy, more confidence. It might help you get out of your head a little bit. I would really recommend that. Try not to get caught up in whatever conflict is going on. Use that Mars energy to really do what you can to make yourself feel better, okay? And do something productive. Mars is good with that when you have nice Mars aspects. So moving into Sunday, July 20th, the moon sextiles the sun at 2:43 a.m., which is also a nice little aspect. And it is then void, of course, until it enters Gemini at 6:41 a.m. And it conjoins Uranus shortly after. So moon in Gemini is restless. It really likes mental stimulation. Uranus as well, there could be some surprises. We always want to be on guard when it comes to Uranus, and just be aware that you might be surprised by something. Although this is at 6:41 a.m., so I don't know. If you're awake, who knows what might happen. However, the last thing I want to talk about, which I should have mentioned in the beginning, this is also a pretty big transit, is Mars is going to be conjunct the South Node at 9:59 p.m. This is kind of a big deal, okay? Anything hitting the nodal axis, the North or South Node, is going to be felt pretty strongly. And if you have anything in if you have anything in Virgo or Pisces around, I think it's going to be maybe 20 degrees or so, you're going to be feeling this, especially if it's hitting your chart in that way. Mars on the South Node, it can be a little difficult, okay? It's going to bring up past patterns. The South Node is like where you're coming from. The North Node is where you're going. So it's taking you back to the past. It's having you think about, things that might make you angry, might make you a little aggressive. Mars can get very frustrated, and you need to figure out how to release this frustrated energy in a healthy way. You want to try to not get stuck in old patterns. That's really what I'm feeling with Mars and the South Node, is like, how can we release this energy? How can we try to learn from our past experiences and free ourselves from past limitations so that we can move towards that North Node in Pisces and release all this pent-up energy, So that's going to be going on Sunday. A little bit tense, I know, but that is our week. I, again, apologize if I was stumbling over my words a little bit. Mercury is almost retrograde, you guys. So I hope that this was informative, and I'm going to try every week to make these videos better and better. I hope that you enjoyed this, and thank you so much to everybody who followed me on YouTube. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.